Hey, welcome to a brand new series of London360, the news feature show that keeps you in the know about everything that's been happening in the capital. You can catch us here weekly, or you can watch the show anytime and get involved online at communitychannel.org/London360. We're now also on Snapchat, so check us out at London360 to catch up on all the action behind the scenes. Don't go anywhere because we've got some great stories lined up, from the Magic Lantern Festival that brought China to Chiswick to the story of a Londoner who recently found her match. You might think that big businesses don't always have big hearts, but not the toy industry. At the toy fair in Olympia, sellers were literally giving their toys away to volunteers with trolleys, all to help vulnerable children. Daryl Hammond was in the thick of the action.
We're here at the toy fair at Olympia, where, as you can see behind me, there are a plethora of toy manufacturers looking to sell their toys to toy buyers. A new toy can mean the world to a child who has fled an abusive home with a parent, often leaving with nothing but the clothes on their back. That's why charity KidsOut and their army of volunteers came to Olympia to grab as many toys as they could to help children in refuge.
We provide support to children in refuges as one of the major streams of our services. We provide them with toy boxes. So these children who've been traumatised, who've left home without anything at all, have something that's brand new and for them.
And what better way to gather toys for children than a trolley dash, a staple of the toy fair?
It really finishes off the event well, and for our exhibitors it's great. I mean, some of the stands donate the whole stand. They take their products off and give it to the volunteers, so it's great for them and obviously great for KidsOut.
And with trolleys in tow, they set off. So as you can see behind me, the trolley dash is in full swing. We've got dozens and dozens of trolleys all rushing up and down these aisles to get loads of toys for KidsOut. So good luck, guys.
So what KidsOut do is that they take these toys and they pack them into age-appropriate boxes, and so they get a knock on the door and a delivery man will give them a box with all these toys that are just for them and just make them feel special just for a little bit. It's just amazing how these people just give so much of their own produce. Is amazing. Most people here have been incredibly generous. These guys they've given us literally everything that they've got, which is, it's amazing. It's getting a bit of a threat on here. Yeah, it's great, it's really good.
I think it's went very well. I think it's important that you translate these boxes into obviously children. And these boxes are going to hopefully put a smile on a child's face.
This is beyond our wildest dreams. We've never had anything like this before. It's just unbelievable. It just means we'll be able to reach even more children, which is fantastic.
Nearly 20,000 children fled abusive homes with a parent and stayed in a women's aid refuge in 2015. Former refuge resident Lynn has championed the work KidsOut have done in helping her and her son get back on their feet.
I had to leave because my son was suffering. My husband was racially abusive to him. Since we've moved on, my son is like a transformation, and that I owe it to KidsOut, and all the things that KidsOut did would take us the toys.
Katie is another KidsOut beneficiary, and having recently left the refuge, she feels their work deserves greater recognition.
I think there should be more awareness, and the government should do more to project all of these different charities and refuges that are here and what they do. Even though in the past few years I have seen more adverts on violence and stuff like that, it's not really enough because people still don't know what a refuge is, and they still don't know that domestic violence is as common as it is.
The Chinese community in London is around 125,000 people strong. Annually, Chinese New Year is celebrated under the media's watchful eye, with tourists from across the globe who congregate in London's Chinatown. But this year, there's an alternative celebration bringing traditional Chinese lanterns to the capital. Laurelle Campbell went to Chiswick to meet a 66-metre-long dragon.
Londoners love culture. If you really want to celebrate Chinese New Year in style, come to the Magical Lantern Festival.
Ordinarily, when we think about celebrating Chinese New Year here in London, we think of Chinatown. But this year, to celebrate the Year of the Monkey, we have the premiere of the Lantern Festival here in the heart of West London, the first ever of its kind here at Chiswick House. The local environment has been transformed into an extravaganza of light, culture, art and cuisine. With ticket prices for adults and children ranging from between £10 and £18, this magical lantern festival is a vision of light in the heart of West London.
We wanted to offer something new, something unique, something on the other side of town. Everyone goes to Central. This is in West London. It's more about the location and the setting. You can see just how beautiful this location is.
All the lanterns are from the origin of the lantern itself. So it's a small city in Sichuan province. As Western people know, it's a panda province. And we had a team in China to design everything. Not only the Eastern lantern, we also have, for example, Cinderella and animals for the Chiswick house and the London. Lantern Festival has 2,000-year history. There is a different version of stories. So one version is the Buddhism. They use the lantern to do ritual celebration. And another story is because Lantern Festival itself on the lunar calendar is the first full moon day. So on that day, everyone goes out to enjoy the moon and to enjoy the food. And also the empire, the royal family, they use that day to do a lot of celebration. And one of the celebration is to light the lantern. London has a big population of Chinese here. And Chinese people, as we are working here, we can't always go back to celebrate Chinese New Year. So we want to make the Chinese New Year here more traditional, not only for Chinese people to celebrate New Year, but also to promote the Chinese culture as well.
Reactions from the public to the magical lantern festival were varied.
All the lights and all the different shapes and the linking into different cultures was really interesting.
I think the Lantern Festival's really nice. It's very bright. I don't particularly feel it represents the Chinese community in any sense. After all this stuff is made in China and shipped over here. There's no homegrown built stuff by Chinese people here in London or the UK at all.
As well as the cultural aspects of the festival, visitors were in awe of the brightly lit lanterns on display.
This is the first time this has happened in London, and I think it's well worth everybody coming to see it. What a wonderful place to bring the children and have a pleasant evening out.
It's different, it's just pure lights as opposed to in Soho you get a lot of dancers and it's quite hustle and bustle.
You don't feel like you're in London, which is really nice, and it's quite nice to have something to do that's outside in the evenings.
My favourite piece was definitely the dragon, because it's so big and it just lights up everywhere and it just shines out.
Here at London360, we love to give people a platform to have a say about their great city. So we invite you to send us your stories, points of view, or even passionate rants. Charlie from Peckham headed down to Glengall Wolf Gardens, a community project run by local volunteers. Tell us what you found out, Charlie.
On a quiet street in Peckham, a group of volunteers are helping run Glengall Wolf Gardens, a community-based gardening project that survives on volunteering and donations. A garden of this size needs looking after and maintaining, but as you can see, there are very few volunteers.
We do need more volunteers, especially ones who've got some kind of gardening knowledge, but we're also happy to take anybody here who wants to learn about gardening.
This is what's beautiful about it. It's when it's open, you can drop in, drop out.
Karen has lived on this street for 15 years, but has only known about this project for 2 weeks.
Do you think it's a good thing that Peckham has something like this?
It's fantastic. It's really, really good. But I don't think it's well known enough. It's not advertised enough.
Coming up after the break, don't bin your food yet. A restaurant in London is turning wasted food into a gourmet meal. And Black Lives Matter has been a global campaign. But did you know people are facing police brutality right on our doorstep? Welcome back to part 2 of London360, bringing you real and alternative stories from London's hidden communities. This month, a vigil was held for a Londoner who was found dead in her cell at Holloway Prison. She had previously been subjected to police brutality. Ronelle Felix went down to her vigil to find out how members of the community are campaigning for justice.
Black Lives Matter! Sarah Reid! Say her name! Black Lives Matter!
In January 2016,
Sarah Reed was found dead in her cell in Holloway Prison. Sarah had suffered from mental illness since the loss of her son in 2003.
It's a tragic story. A young black woman, 2003, loses a child 9 months old. In 2012, she then becomes a victim of a brutal racist police assault by PC James Kiddie. In 2015, she's in Maudsley. She's the victim of a sexual attack by another inmate. She defends herself. The police are called. Sarah's arrested, put on remand from October 2015 to January 11th, the day she died, without any medication for her condition.
A spokesperson for the Met Police stated,
"The death is not being treated as suspicious. A report has been passed to the coroner."
Sarah's story has sparked a discussion about the duty of care towards prisoners with mental illness.
The monotonous regularity of deaths in custody in London and in Britain as a whole is one that needs to be highlighted. She might have been invisible to those that rule us, but she's not invisible to us, and we are here to light a candle in the darkness for her.
Since 1967, we're nearly running at 5,000 people have died at the hands of the state, and there are 0 convictions. There's still no mental health wing. There's nothing for any of the inmates. You know, you can't lock people up and say, well, that's it, and like they say, throw away the key. These people still have to come out. So if you're going to lock them up, at least help them. Give them education, give them hope, give them something, not a coffin.
Some have seen Sarah's death as a collective failure and have called for more mainstream media to highlight the issue.
If we talk about how many front pages that The Voice has had to dedicate to a lost life, I couldn't begin to tell you. Whether it's Smiley Culture, Sean Rigg, Sheku Bayou more recently, and now Sarah Reed. Look at these institutions, look at these establishments, the headlines. Who's writing about Sarah Reed? Now. Post the hashtag, look who's still writing about her. That's what you have to ask, or that's what you have to look for yourself and see, and that will show you how invested they are.
Holloway Prison is to be sold off to make way for new houses. George Osborne has said that the female prisoners will complete their sentences in more humane conditions. Sadly, too late for Sarah.
What's heartbreaking about this story is I don't feel that this is going to be the last Sarah Reed we hear about. We know there's a big Black Lives Matter campaign in the USA, but Black Lives Matter in the UK, and there's been a series of deaths at the hands of the state. Institutional racism hasn't gone away in the police and the public sector. In fact, it's got worse, and it's been amplified by austerity. The judicial system is failing them in terms of getting answers, in terms of transparency, and in terms of justice.
According to the Waste and Resources Action Programme, over 900,000 tonnes of food are thrown away in London each year, and at least half of that could be avoided. Savan Gandecha took a trip to Notting Hill to see how one pop-up restaurant is leading the way in trying to make this a thing of the past.
To sustain the vast numbers of people on this planet, we need to really relook at how we eat.
Londoners waste nearly a megaton of food every year. With landfill sites reaching their capacity, Londoners are now being urged to give food wastage some thought. Tiny Leaf is a pop-up restaurant that focuses on zero-waste food. Diners are offered a range of organic vegetarian meals, whilst being encouraged to be mindful about wastage. The restaurant is supplied by local organic wholesalers and retailers who deliver surplus food stock that would have otherwise been wasted.
We get a pallet load of organic veg delivered from Abel & Cole every week. Yeah, fresh produce, look at this, amazing. Well, we'd like to hopefully educate and raise awareness through what we're doing of our zero waste organic restaurant. Hopefully we can inspire people and educate to make a bit of a difference.
There is beautiful vegetarian food to be had, and we want to kind of push vegetables as being at the central point to a really nice meal out. In London, stats are around 900,000 tonnes of food is wasted every year. Almost half of that actually could have been avoided.
The reason why we waste so much is just because of bad habits, which we've either been instilled by from a very early age or via just basic consumerism. And it's basically changing that way of approaching buying, cooking, preparing, and then wasting. We've managed to cut down massively on ours in several respects by upcycling, composting, reusing, whatever we can. And obviously there's still a lot of work to be done in regards to that. It is an ambitious feat to say one wants to be zero waste, but there's so much data out there, whether it's online, whether it's with experts, whether it's with people who themselves have tried various methods. I think it is possible to get to as close as possible to zero waste as we'd like. Down the line, I'd love for us to be able to do something like a cookbook which would allow anyone how to use things that they would usually look at potential waste and turning that into a wonderful dish.
So Tiny Leaf is pioneering the way forward to the rest of the restaurants, that we can actually get this fresh produce that was going to waste, and we can use it in really good meals to serve to people.
We're also connected to Whole World Water. Their main objective is to give access to clean water to those who don't have it. We have alkaline water in stock, and we basically sell that to customers, and then a certain percentage of that water goes back to Whole World Water.
We haven't got infinite, resources in the world, so yeah, using those, resources, in a sensible way is important.
We're so wasteful as humans, and a lot of the times big companies, big corporations, they like to say that global warming is caused by fossil fuel, when really the #1 cause of global warming is animal byproducts, animal waste, and ruining the earth. And they don't want to say, because all the food companies rule the world and they have a lot of power.
Londoners have been urged to consider eating sustainably grown food to improve their well-being and the environment around them.
It doesn't leave much impact on the earth and the ecosystem in which we live. And Londoners benefit more from this because of the amount of toxins we have in the city alone, with the water and the pollutants and everything that we already put in our body. I think it's better to do the least we can to impact on the earth around us and our own health as well.
London360 has in the past covered issues on the lack of ethnic minorities on the blood donor register. Match for Lara was a story that trended across the world. London360 was on the journey right from the start to the hopefully happy ending. Yasmin Tamwijaja Pajares tells us the story.
I was diagnosed with leukemia in December, and it was quite a big shock to find out it was leukemia, which I knew very little about. When things sunk in a little bit, at least it all made sense. There were times where I cycled to uni and I was just finding the cycle a lot more difficult than usual, and I was just thinking, oh God, I'm so unfit at the moment. But it was actually because of the leukemia. But then the doctors later told me that I would need a stem cell transplant. And then that's when my family thought about the difficulties of me possibly finding a donor if my brother wasn't a match. And then after some waiting, we found that he wasn't. And that's when they decided to launch an appeal.
When you find out that your daughter has such a serious disease, it's a real shock. You never expect to have to look after your children.
Charities such as Anthony Nolan and Delete Blood Cancer hosted various events across the UK to increase the patient donor register. One was held at the Jewish Museum in London.
What's interesting about the Lara story is that you need to find a genetic match, and it's much more likely if they come from the same ethnic group.
One of the biggest things that's come out of this campaign is learning about how underrepresented ethnic minorities and mixed race people are on the registry.
In 2015, the Greater London Authority reported London to have a population of 44% from mixed ethnic backgrounds. According to Delete Blood Cancer and Anthony Nolan Charities, every 20 minutes someone in the UK finds out that they have a blood cancer. But on the Anthony Nolan register, only 0.5% from East Asian backgrounds and 1.5% from European backgrounds are on their registry, making it very difficult for patients with a rare background to find the perfect match.
People can register online for a cheek swab kit to be sent out to their address, or people can register via one of our events which go on around the country.
The challenge of spreading awareness of this issue was really the message we wanted to send.
You need help from community leaders to kind of get those messages across to the rest of the community and make them understand that this is a really important thing to do.
I certainly think the responsibility lies with education. Realistically, throughout my whole school life, I never heard or was asked to donate at all.
During the filming of this feature, I managed to find a match. I don't know anything about my donor. They have to stay anonymous for 2 years, and they don't know anything about me either. And we're allowed to correspond through a third party, be through Anthony Nolan, and then after 2 years we can meet. The campaign isn't going to just stop now. Since the beginning, it's always been about diversifying the donor registry and expanding the donor registry and raising awareness about it. I hope that more and more people will sign up, and it will just become easier for people to find their match, and they don't have to, hopefully one day, have this anxious long wait to find out whether they will have a match or not, and that everyone can find a match and it'll just be a certainty.
That's it for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed the show. To find out more about any of the stories featured, head to communitychannel.org/London360. Be sure to join in on the conversation by following us on social media. And remember, keep it 360.